Previously on the recap sequence.
Hey folks, welcome to the recap sequence. We're back. It's Marvel time. We warned you before the holidays that this is going to be a Marvel heavy 2025, and we've already seen our first film of the year, and we have back from 2024. We have Brent O'Hara joining us to talk all things Marvel today. Welcome, Brent. Welcome to the new year.
Hey, yes, Happy New Year to you guys too then. Yes, nice to see you guys, and looking forward to chatting lots of Marvel this year.
Oh, yeah. So listen, Brent, we saw it on Saturday. When did you see Cap 4?
Saturday as well.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
Can we just say, I know we say this at the start of every episode, whether it's going to be a spoiler one or not, but it's been 4 days now since it's been out.
Yeah.
And really, so if you haven't been on social media, somewhere, somehow, something's going to get spoiled for you.
Yeah, like
So-
there is a Red Hulk, and and I'm not just saying that. But yeah, I don't know. I think
Gloves off.
what do you say, Brent? You down? Can we do this spoiler?
Yeah.
free?
Yes,
All
for
right.
sure.
Love it. Okay. We do it anyway.
Yeah, I know.
We ultimately end up spoiling. We get about 10 minutes in and something comes out. So just a spoiler alert. If you haven't seen Captain America Brave New World,
Go.
go pause this immediately. Go watch it and then unpause. And,
Listen to us when you're driving back from the theater.
Or
Listen.
yeah,
There
even
you go.
better. Even better.
I might even add, if you haven't watched the trailers, don't.
Yeah. There's the movie is pretty much summed up in the trailer. Although, look, there was a story in there that I wasn't expecting, and I did try my best to avoid too much spoilery stuff. I'm fascinated by the Harrison Ford stuff just because to see him in the MCU, pretty cool. But yeah, otherwise, I really didn't know what the story was going to be about. And the story really kind of leads to setting up some things, I would say.
Okay, so I'm glad to hear you say that, because for me, and maybe it's just because of my perspective on it, I did find this one in particular that I really did enjoy this film a lot. I am
Yeah.
very glad to have seen it, and I'm glad to have it move things forward in the ways that it did. But I found that if you've watched the trailers,
Yeah.
you got a pretty good sense of a lot of what a lot of the big moments are. And I'm just imagining if you were able to somehow go into this movie without having seen them, then there would have been a lot of big moments that were like, wow, that is so cool.
Yeah.
But they capitalized on those moments hugely in the marketing in order to get those butts in the seats. So we saw a lot of the big special wow stuff in the trailers.
We did, and the thing was, and how they brought the big wow stuff in was really the twist.
It was well done.
And I could have done without knowing that. I would have loved to have had my suspicions, and I would have rather gone in there thinking, is this going to happen? Are they really going to do this to Harrison Ford? And they did, and it's great. But had I not known for sure, I think I would have been a lot more excited when it happened.
I think for me, when we were watching this, is I was wondering when it was going to happen, right? Because he kept referring to the trees, the special trees he likes to walk.
Oh, the
through.
cherry blossom tree.
Cherry
Yeah,
blossom
yeah.
trees. And when he's in Japan, you see that. I was like, is it happening there? And I was like, no, because in the trailer, I remember seeing the podium and he was doing a speech. They did a good job of teasing, going, are we going to see him before where we actually see the stuff out of the trailer, especially on the boat? I wondered
Yes.
if that was going to happen.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Because-
on the ship.
Isn't it funny
Yeah.
that both times they teased it, Red and Green Hulk were on a ship in the middle of really nowhere.
Somewhere where you can cause maximum
Right.
damage to all your military assets. Yeah.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yes.
I gotta say, I felt like, okay, so the trailer did give away a lot of stuff, but I felt like the movie itself could have been cut a different way. And I don't know if it was that sort of a thing, if it was we got to get this out now and this is the cut. But I think a different cut of that film might hit a little bit differently. And I don't know how you guys feel about it, but there were certain elements of the plot, including the Mossad agent, which we didn't really get into very much about her backstory. There were some things that I felt that were moved through so quickly that they could have been really cool things. And maybe they'll pop up later on in other things. And go, oh, wait, if you saw Winter Soldier, or sorry, Captain America, okay, that makes sense now. But I just felt like there were some storylines that could have been pursued that were probably filmed, and it was really an editing thing for me. That's how it kind of felt to me. It felt like it was a rush edit.
Well, you are bang on because they did cut out. They cut out a lot of the Serpent Society, the stuff with the Serpent Society, and complete characters. And they did cut out the Sabra story. Sabra is an Israeli superhero character in the comics who we were getting here, but a lot of that a lot of those elements were really tamed down.
Yeah.
And interestingly enough, it seems like it was them being a bit conservative about dividing their audience because of the situation that's going
True.
on in the
Yep.
world
Yeah.
right now. They really limited leaning into any one side or the other in that aspect of it. So and during the making of it, they did kind of hint at that's what was happening.
Yeah.
But you're feeling it, and I think you felt it as well with the Serpent Society aspect.
Yeah.
There was a Diamondback had McDonald's figures.
Yeah.
Toys, and
Yep.
like they cut that right out,
Yep.
and they limited Giancarlo's Esposito's role. Not They didn't limit his role, but they limited talking about him as part of the bigger Serpent Society. They just called it the Serpent, so they limited some stuff there. Although
Yeah.
we can talk about a couple things later there, but
Do you
there
see
are a
this
few
as
hints.
do you see this as them just saying, okay, we're introducing it, but we can use it later down the road, either Disney Plus series of some form or somewhere else in one of the movies?
Maybe so, because certainly
Yeah.
they left themselves open to being able to do that. We did get Copperhead.
Yes.
So that was but no one would have known that.
No. Yeah,
It
there
was
was
just
some cool stuff. It just, yeah,
the
they
big
didn't get in.
guy,
Yeah.
that was facing off against
Yeah.
Cap and was a bit of a challenge. He was a Serpent Society member, and but they really didn't seem to want to go too far into that. And
Yeah.
I don't know, maybe they found that it was complicating their, they've got a few levels, they've got stuff going on in their story. Maybe
Sure.
they found it was just a little too much, or making that was the story threads a little too dense, and they simplified it a little bit, and maybe from that aspect it worked. But it left, for fans, I'll say for myself, it left me wanting a little bit more.
Yeah, well, and
Yeah.
I agree, and I think going more into the Serpent Society stuff would have helped the plot because of what they were trying to establish was the phony plot to steal adamantium and peg it on another all of that stuff, like to get somebody such a big heavy hitter organization like Serpent Society. And unfortunately, when they end up arresting Giancarlo Esposito's character, it was just kind of like a common thug. Like they just kind of reduced the mystique and everything. He just kind of got caught, very quickly. There was not a lot to that. And I understand not wanting to go in too many directions, but there really felt like they put guardrails on. You can't do this, you can't do that. Let's not get too much into the nuance of a compromised president and a brainiac running the country or any of that stuff, right? Like they really danced around some things, and I think they were worried. It really kind of felt like this is an edited version of the movie.
Yeah, you got it. I think you're right.
Yeah.
The playthrough for me was okay. Like,
Yeah.
this really felt like, okay, this is picking up from the Disney Plus show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and moving things forward in the MCU picking up on some elements from the Eternals and from that original Incredible Hulk, movie. So we got some payoff for things that we've been waiting a long time on, right? As
yeah.
fans with Samuel Stearns,
Yeah.
Yes.
and
I
this
was really
really,
glad they did that, though, Brent, is bringing the Incredible Hulk movie into canon. Because I said
Yeah.
this to Jamie afterwards. We kind of got the Abomination with in Shang-Chi when he's fighting in the cage against Wong. And then also we got it a bit with She-Hulk, right? But
She-Hulk, yeah.
there was never that reference to the battle in Brooklyn between Abomination and Hulk until really this movie.
Yeah, they do sort of embrace that, and even with Betty, like with Abomination, and these Hulk elements with the leader, Samuel Stearns, and Betty and Abomination. They really sort of embraced that and picked that up, and that felt good. I really enjoyed having those aspects embraced the way that they did. Seems like it was a long time coming
Yeah.
for some of that stuff. And ultimately this being a ultimately the Samuel Stearns is a big part of this story. Like,
Right.
really, he's the one they're up against. They don't shy away from that per se in the trailers and such too. They kind of they tell us, but it's all about it's all about his dynamic, his relationship with Thunderbolt Ross is this story.
Yeah.
And picking up with Cap having to kind of deal with it, Ross being in the position that he's in, though, wanting Sam to restart the Avengers. That's interesting. Okay, we're moving things forward. Him introducing adamantium at the beginning of this movie was like, okay, this is really moving things forward. This is good stuff, and it feels very Marvel, and they can do so many cool things with it. So those things I thought were really enjoyable and engaging, immersive. Pulled me right into this status quo that they're establishing here now. So I'm fully engaged in it.
Hi, this is Will Friedle, co-host of I Hear Voices, and Eric Matthews from Boy Meets World, and you are listening to the recap sequence with Jamie and Ryan.
How did you like how they portrayed the leader physically?
Apparently, they made a change to this. It's interesting. Now, in the comics, leader has been typically portrayed as he's got the tall head. He's green, of course, but there was an iteration of the leader that was more like this one, where the physical manifestation of his mutation because of the gamma was like a brain sitting on top of his head that had expanded, and there was veins, and it was a little more gruesome, shall we say, and they really leaned into that with this version of it. And I believe that this was coming out of testing and focus groups and things like that, they were trying to find a way to portray the leader in a way that didn't turn audiences off. Now, they ended up with the more gruesome,
He's pretty gross looking, yeah.
interpretation of the leader,
Yeah.
which I find is weird. Why would that have tested better than the tall-headed classic leader? But that's the way that they went with it, and I can go with it. I really liked Samuel Stearns in this. Tim Blake Nelson was great. I'm very happy to have him in the story. And but yeah, like the one glowing eye, and that he's a little bit off and kind of crazy. Is this a little more grounded and realistic, maybe a little less superhero-y, or a little more
Comic bookish?
Yeah, a little less comic bookish. I don't know. It's an interesting thing to observe, though.
Yeah. So I'm curious because I know when we went into this, I want to know your guys' thoughts. The big, obviously, they've managed to keep, the leader from the Incredible Hulk to this. They managed to get the same actor back. Liv Tyler was back for this, but of course the big change was we lose William Hurt. He passes away. They recast the character of Thunderbolt Ross with Harrison Ford. I'm curious, Brent, what did you think overall of this? I mean, now as we were joking, waiting for this, here's Indiana Jones and let's say Indiana Jones, Star Wars, Marvel. Can he get in any other big franchises out there that don't have Harrison Ford involved yet?
I haven't seen him in Star Trek yet. We can still get him. There's still places we can put him.
They seem to be leaning into that into the marketing too. With Harrison Ford has been coming out and saying, no, Sam, you're like,
Anthony.
hold on. Anthony Mackie. Thank you. Sorry,
Yeah.
I took blank for a second there. Anthony Mackie. He's been, Harrison Ford's been saying, look, you're the star of this. I'm here to support you. And there's been a lot of this, back and forth. Relatively speaking, Anthony Mackie, he's been in some pretty big Marvel movies. Everybody knows who he is, but he's not on the same level as as Han Solo, right?
Of course, yeah.
You're not gonna anyway. But so there's been a lot of really, I think, good, compelling dynamic interactions between them in the marketing, and to say no, this is, and you're saying no, you're the star, no, you're the star. But overall, I think Harrison Ford's performance in this was terrific.
Yep.
Very, very believable. Now, he is a more, they've really played into, there was multiple little jabs and sort of winks and nods, right? Of how much he's changed, right?
Yeah.
So they're really playing into the, yes, he's a different actor. He's not the same guy. And they did this with Rhodey, as well. This Marvel's had fun with this type of thing in the past, just to say, yes, we know different looking is a different actor, but we're
Ruffalo's done that too. Yeah.
Yes. So but all told, Harrison Ford's take on Thunderbolt Ross is a more emotional take. We see him in this more vulnerable place. So and for that, I completely buy what he's doing. I buy his his anger, his it's a little bit, it's not easy to go from William Hurt to Harrison Ford. There's a jump, there's a leap there, but for Harrison Ford's take, I'm completely in. Does he feel like the same guy? No, but I do like the take that he has. What did you guys think?
So I will say the one part I did find a little comical was when they were getting into his presidential campaign and his history, and then he had the flip out at the press conference, and they put the mustache on him, and it kind of looked a little SNL to me, like Harrison Ford was doing a like a Thunderbolt Ross, an angry Thunderbolt Ross impression. But other than that, and I like the way that he kind of explained away the mustache, got rid of that, and how they were in the photos, and like they do a good job when they you have to replace somebody, you have to make it believable. I totally bought him. I mean, it's hard because I've seen him as the president in other movies, and so you're trying to kind of separate him from the president from Air Force One, for example, and to see him, and you don't see Harrison Ford generally as sort of a villain or somebody that is behind some of the chaos in most films, right? He's kind of more of a hero or a loner. I know you were telling me about what was the Russian movie?
Oh, K-19 Widowmaker.
Anyway, that's not worth mentioning ever again. He did a really good job of that, though. But also, he brings his sensitivities into it. So I find you always kind of he's kind of a warm gruff old man, right? Like you feel for him. Like you wouldn't have the same feelings for the William Hurt Thunderbolt Ross, I don't think. That you had, like I found Harrison Ford was able to curry a little bit more empathy, I think, into that role. But part of that was trying to show that he had changed. And there were elements of him that obviously hadn't. Once you found out the plot, he was, doing some pretty evil stuff. But I really enjoyed his portrayal. Really wasn't thinking backwards, thinking like, oh, this is a weird switch or anything like that. They just, you're in that mode, and I wanted to believe it, so it was fine. Interesting to see him on the raft at the end, and so I'm wondering, we had the Thunderbolts preview at the beginning of the movie. The raft comes up at the end of this particular movie, and all I'm thinking is the Sentry, and I'm thinking Breakout, and I'm thinking like, please give me some New Avengers, and or like a whiff of it. So I don't know. Did you get a little bit of like
100%. I
Okay,
am
good.
so there. I am so there. I'm seeing the raft, and it's like,
Yeah.
how many movies here have they now been
Yeah.
showing us the raft? And they're making a point to keep the raft established. And okay, so now we have this notion that the Red Hulk is in the raft, and we have, but like I'm exactly like what you're saying. I'm seeing the raft, and I'm thinking the Sentry.
Yeah.
We're getting the
Yeah.
Sentry in the next film. Is he going to end up in the raft? Now, in the raft, that was their introduction to the Sentry.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's not exactly the same. Um,
I have a thought on that.
Go ahead.
So Breakout is basically getting the Sentry to break out of the raft, right? So now you got the Red Hulk in the raft. We've seen this before, where you put the Hulk in a tin can and you shake it up a bit, and
Watch what happens.
we could still have a Breakout storyline. Where they use the Red Hulk essentially to break everybody out. I thought about this as in the drive back, thinking like, how do we piece this all together? How can I get this all in one year? But I know we've got to wait. But it's possible that you could still get that. Like, I don't know, because I don't think the Sentry makes his appearance the same way. Is introduced in the same way necessarily, that in New Avengers anyway. Like, anyway, I'll be curious to see how all this unfolds. But for me, the juxtaposition of beginning with a preview, with kind of the Sentry kind of looming as a presence that's coming, and then this whole idea that you've got a way for the raft to be really seriously disrupted now. Anyway, get me excited.
And the leader's on the raft as well, isn't he?
Was he?
At the end.
Would they put him in? Did they put him in there?
yes.
Oh,
well,
That after
yes.
credits
Oh,
scene.
Yes. Yes. If we look
I
at
can
the
see how you
post,
can antagonize a Hulk now. Okay.
and boy, this has certainly notes, not just from Breakout, which is such a terrific comics in the New Avengers with the launch of that following Disassembled. What an incredible, powerful story that, of course, you'd think that they'd want to lean into at some point in time. Hey, was that, they're going to do something with that with Spider-Man 4,
Yeah.
which is starting to film this summer. Will they be able to lean into that? But I think, coming out of Thunderbolts is, like, could obviously Sentry is there, and he's kind of they're an antagonist to the Thunderbolts. Will he end up on the raft? That could be. And so if you're collecting some powerful people in the raft to do something Breakout-ish, that might be a lot of fun. That might be a lot of fun on film. But I wanted to pick up on, when we're listening to the leader, also in the raft talking, boy, does that ever have notes of Avengers, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, where you have Kang, you have these who are locked up, but they are telling you, I know what's going to happen.
Right.
And that's really fun, because boy, those stories wove together so well in that particular animated series. And so they're leaning into some of these really fun contexts,
Yeah.
that they've established really well before, and that they're leaning into some of these to move this story forward, is pretty cool.
Brent, let me ask you then, because we were talking about this afterwards. The end credit scene where Falcon's talking to the leader, is he referencing Secret Wars?
Yes, he is, but like but not just that. Like we are the leader is expressing that he's done the calculations. So he's figured something out. He's figured out some of what we've been seeing as an audience. He's figured out that there's a multiverse. You know, they don't overtly
Yeah.
say that he's aware of the time variance authority or anything like that. They don't go that far, but we as an audience have been watching this, and there's all of these variations. We just watched the Deadpool and Wolverine movie last summer, and we got the TVA and we got the multiverse in a joking way, but the Loki series established that, of course,
Mhm.
and Multiverse of Madness with Doctor Strange, and you know, the collisions of universes that they've been trying to avoid, and they're they're showing that okay, uh, you know, someone inside their universe, this universe, is aware, is becoming aware, is aware of the multiverse, and is warning the audience, you know, something's coming. What are you going to do when the others come? Like what are you going to do? And so he's aware of it, and is kind of talking to not just the audience, but he's talking to Joaquin, talking to the Falcon, is like, yeah,
Mhm.
you know, what are people going to do here? And so I think it's a fun story setup for what's going to happen in Doom Quest. We know, I would say, is going to hit on because we have the Fantastic Four coming up in a couple of months, and that's in another universe. For how long? We know there's a connection coming.
Mm-hmm.
We know there's a connection coming between the Fantastic Four and the main MCU. And then we have Doom Quest, which is going to fall right out of that Fantastic Four movie. And then we have Secret Wars, where the multiverse collision is going to happen. So it's set up, it's tease, and I think I think it's pretty cool.
So I do have a question for you though, Brent, and I don't know if you know this or not. Is the Red Hulk expected in any upcoming future projects? Primarily, I would assume either Doomsday or Secret Wars. The only reason I ask this is because Harrison Ford is going to be 84 this summer. And do they want to, run the risk of having to heaven forbid he passes away, but they'd have to recast another one for Thunderbolt Ross at that point. So do we know if Hulk is expected? Like, would the Russo brothers say, okay, we want to start filming your scenes now?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, right. They have created that for themselves an off ramp. If and they have also left the door open. So depending on how things go, they have. I've heard that they've deliberately left the door open for another appearance of Harrison Ford. But like you say, um, look at the note that they've left us on here, where Betty and General Ross are reunited.
Mm-hmm.
It closes that loop.
Yeah.
It's tidied up. That story thread, it can be left just right there, and they don't have to touch it. And it has and it's come to a satisfying story conclusion. So part of me wants them to just to leave it,
Yeah.
like that. And then part of me is like, well, no, like we're talking about here, there's a Red Hulk potentially sitting there in a prison cell on the raft, right?
You're telling me that the fanboy in you doesn't even just an inkling, Brent, want to see Red Hulk versus Green Hulk somewhere down the road?
That would be great.
The recap sequence will return after these messages.
Hey, this is Jamie,
And this is Ryan.
and we're the Recap Sequence.
Be sure to tune in to us every Wednesday night on CHSR 97.9 FM. We're online at chsrfm.ca at 7 p.m. Atlantic, 6 p.m. Eastern.
And if you don't catch us live, you can catch our podcast on Spotify, on Amazon, anywhere you get your favorite podcasts. And we also have a YouTube channel you may have been watching, and if not, you should be. You can catch us on YouTube at Recap Sequence. So
And subscribe.
subscribe, yeah, please.
We now return to the recap sequence.
There was a couple things that they did not give us in this film, and that was one, they didn't give us any banner. There was no banner appearance. And maybe they're saving that. Like maybe they are saving that for a Red Hulk. They've got the 3D model now.
Yeah, true.
They can have a if there's a World War Hulk story brewing, boy, you would have you'd have Harrison Ford showing up there for sure. If they can. But the other thing that they didn't give us in this was no confirmation of Steve Rogers or where he
Right.
is or what he's.
Yeah.
They
That
did
left
all.
open. Sorry, it left open a lot of questions because how long after Captain Falcon and the Winter Soldier does Cap 4 take place? Because all of a sudden Captain America's got some pretty sweet wings, courtesy of
Oh, the Wakandans.
the Wakandans.
The Wakandans, yeah. So we have again Marvel in their real time, way of approaching the films. We had the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and then we've had other things like the Marvels. Has happened. Secret Invasion with Nick Fury's story has happened with that president. And so obviously they're going to need a new president now because Harrison Ford has stepped aside. So who's that going to be? Is there more story there? We'll see. So they're not leaning into the Skrull president anymore, unless they jury rig the timing of Secret Invasion to have happen after this. But I don't think they're going to do that. So that's interesting.
I was I don't know, I wouldn't say disappointed. I was perplexed that Bucky showed up and left kind of in the middle of all of this turmoil that Sam was going through. Could have really used a super powered friend at that particular moment in the movie. And I know he had a meeting he was off to for his Congress run.
Running for
Yeah,
office, yeah.
but I was a little surprised, I guess, that the Bucky was like, "Hey, I'll see you." Like he just showed up like before like the big part at the end, right? Like this was after Joaquin was in the hospital, and they'd had that was a big fight too, I suppose. Maybe he just thought the fight was over at that point. There was no suspicion that there was a Red Hulk happening, and it was just
That's right.
I think you got this under control. But just seemed kind of like, wow, if somebody could have just stuck around an extra day, book an extra night in a hotel, this might have turned out a little bit differently.
But I look at, actually, it was after you had mentioned this, I was thinking about this on the weekend. It makes sense for him to leave, though, because you make Captain America Sam Wilson. He has to be able to believe he can do this.
Oh yeah,
because he drops that line of going, "I should have taken the super serum, super soldier serum." He says that twice throughout the movie, right?
Yeah.
And if Bucky stays around, then it's sort of like, okay, I'm relying on having a super soldier with me to help clean up the mess here because I can't do it, obviously.
It's like your parents trying to make a point, though. Like, is that the right time for a
Bucky's
lesson
old
like
enough to
that?
be a
Yeah,
parent.
yeah. I don't know.
Well, we're a little bit in Sam's head a little bit too with this because he had made this choice. He took on the mantle, and is being shown in a variety of ways in this show as being, a brave guy for taking on the mantle, and we're shown that that there's an enormous amount of responsibility to try to live up to this. He's not a super soldier, and he's not Steve Rogers, but he's doing the best that he can, and maybe I don't know, maybe that's sort of fitting into their the messaging that's going on with this film. Again, this, like, I think this film was created at a time when Marvel was really leaning into um, a lot of what they were called, what Disney was calling messages, right?
Right.
But like, on the one hand, I'm watching this movie and it's like, boy, there's an awful lot of grown men crying in this film.
Right.
It's a little weird,
Yeah.
it's just, it seemed like, do I buy that the Winter Soldier is saying I love you, man,
Yeah.
to his friend? It's like,
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
oh, I get it. There's, where there's, is it like a pushing a mental health thing where
Yeah.
it's okay nowadays to be a little more expressive, and
Yeah.
maybe that's a little bit more of a norm, but you look at these characters and do you buy it, but yeah, there's just a lot of man tears going on in this
Yeah. I
throughout
agree,
this
actually. Yeah.
throughout this film, and so
Yeah.
that was a little different,
Yeah. Yep.
so
Yeah.
noticeable.
Yeah.
And is that just a result of, and here, even with Harrison Ford, this emotional take, you know, of where Ross is at, he's sort of broken because of his daughter. Like, I don't know, what are they trying to say here? I feel like they're trying to say something, but um, for the most part, it didn't hurt the film too much for me, but it was just one of those little things where I thought um, it seemed a little bit off. It was on my, as far as the pros and cons, Adamantium pro.
Yeah.
That was a con for me.
Yeah.
So let's talk about this, Brent, because how are they going to explain Wolverine now that we've had an introduction to him and the discovery of adamantium on the Celestial Island?
I will say, I love that they limited adamantium. It's very, very, very important to the story of adamantium that there's not a lot of it. Um, all the characters who've had, and it took decades for Marvel to get to a point where, okay, now they've got adamantium everywhere, and I think
Yeah.
they've walked that back a little bit. But there were characters showing up, including Wolverine, Ultron, who's supposed to be showing up in the Vision Quest series now, which will be coming up in what, next year? In the next year or two, and they've established that they have this little bit of adamantium.
Hmm.
Wow, is that good timing? Adamantium in the comics was invented as a device. It was a story device for Ultron. So I really hope they capitalize on that. And then after that, because we've got this notion that adamantium is going to be in demand, of course. Are they going to do something with Weapon X? Will Weapon X be not a Canadian organization per se, but maybe Weapon X will be this joint global organization that is making use of trying to make use of adamantium. But if say Ultron steals it, or something like that, that's got great story potential, and I'm really excited for that. I'm really looking forward to what they do with Ultron in Vision Quest, and I hope it's tied into the adamantium. As far as Wolverine, we know that the directors and creators have already said, yeah, we're leaning into the mutants and X-Men, and adamantium is going to be a big part of what of how that moves forward. So great. Will they use Hugh Jackman? I wouldn't think so, but they have for themselves up until Secret Wars to be able to do that. And then they've got Robert Downey Jr. as Doom, which may not have been like the normal choice. You'd think if you're going forward with Doom into many movies down the road here, you might have gone with a different actor other than Iron Man, to do
Yeah.
that with. But so they've got they probably have the way that a story way to get through the next couple of years until Secret Wars kind of ends up streamlining and putting a cap on the multiverse saga, and then being able to move forward from there. And we know that the X-Men and the mutants will be moving forward from there as a big part of what they're doing forward. So they've got adamantium. Will they have someone new cast as Wolverine by then? I don't know, but I think we can have some fun anticipating some organization coming out of this the story, and this is this Eternals, the celestial mass,
Yeah.
that they've found, this element inside the adamantium, and if so some organization is going to rise and try to do something with it. So I think adamantium is going to be a big part of the story, and I love that. I'm very excited about that.
I'm happy for the Eternals. That something stuck, and it's a big part of it. It's almost like one of the thoughts that went through my head was, it's almost like the MC is a petri dish, and they keep introducing things, and it's almost like they have to be reactive to these things, and they are being reactive to these things. So they that's a big deal. This celestial island happening, and they it's just kind of they normalized it. Yeah, we're all going to chicken it out. So it happened, and they didn't try and go, that didn't happen. Like I was glad to see that. It's always interesting to see, and like you said, Brent, like they kind of get that real time clock kind of has to get reset once you get into, and maybe it's a Captain America thing. You're just on, like on Central Time or something. I don't know, but everything kind of has to line up to the present, and so it does. I don't know. It's just you're dealing with the less superpowered people, so you can spend a little bit more time kind of discussing the reality of things, which is I think what you kind of have to do. But anyway, the Celestial Island I thought was a neat little twist. And
do you feel though you need to watch Eternals to understand the Celestial Island?
No, I slept through it twice. I understood it just fine.
Which is so that's and I'm glad to hear you say that.
Yeah.
If anyone were to be, that means so, I don't know. I would my take would be yes.
Well,
how did this celestial show up in the middle of the earth? Well, you gotta, where do you get that story? And kind of like what you're saying, the petri dish notion of the comics doing things and things that really stick. They lean into those things that really stick. They're kind of doing it like the comics. So yes, there's big fallout from the things that happened in the Eternals, and I agree. I'm very happy that they followed up with this. And they didn't. We got a little hints at it, like in She-Hulk. You see a newspaper clipping of the big hand coming out of the Indian Ocean and everything, and but that they're, it certainly tells you, okay, this leaves a big mess, right? There's this big thing in the middle of the ocean, and it's massive. How does the story get cleaned up? Beyond that, well, Secret Wars is the way that they're going to clean up all of this stuff.
This is Summer Glau, River Tam from Firefly, and you are listening to the recap sequence with Jamie and Ryan.
Reminds me of, I don't know if you guys watched the Tick cartoon. Did you watch the Tick cartoon? And there's a character named Chairface that tried to write his name on the moon. And then for the remainder of the Tick cartoon series, it says Cha on the moon. So anyway, it was like kind of like, good, you did that, and you're stuck with it.
Carve your name in the celestial head.
Yeah. So,
I'm just like, I know you said this was not one of your top Marvel movies.
Definitely not. Now, that being said, we've had a very productive conversation of it. So from the beginning, I kind of established this in my mind of this is a story mover, kind of like like it's you've got to set up some elements. Again, for me, it wasn't my favorite edit to tell the story, but it laid out a bunch of things that have gotten us very excited. So no, not my favorite movie, but the concepts that are coming out and what possibly will lead to. Yes, it's a great way to kind of good start.
Yeah, Brent, what about you? What were your thoughts overall?
I do like some of these things that we've been talking about. I like what they've established as the new status quo, and I like the potential that it has for some of the pieces moving forward in an exciting way. I think there was some fun things in this movie. Generally speaking, even though I had a couple of cons there, it didn't it didn't ruin the movie for me in any way. Like
Mhm.
I really, it's like watching. It's like it felt like an episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
It
Might have been better
and
suited for that. Yeah.
and I liked that show. I thought it was really well done. I liked how they moved forward and expanded on Cap, the Captain America corner of the Marvel universe. And this movie is just like it's a big budget version of that, and it does add and expand on the Captain America corner of the Marvel universe in a really great way. Some ways more subtle than others. Like we didn't talk about that. There's not exactly a reference to the Power Broker, but kind of there's a character that's connected to the Power Broker in this that we saw. The soldier that was going to call Sam because he was looking into that, you
Yeah.
know, that the leader dispatched in a rather unpleasant way.
Yeah.
Um, he is a Marvel character. He is a Demolition Man or D-Man, in the comics. He was an Avenger for a short period of time, but he has a connection to the Power Broker and Sharon Carter. And so these are things that are all Captain America corner of the world things. And even if you want to look at it, the fact that Sam's Cap now, that's well, I guess it's been in the comics for quite some time. That's there too. But the fact that they can lean into a Captain America and a Falcon combo story,
Yeah.
Yep.
man, that's the comics. There was, Cap and Falcon were partners for a long time. And great friends. So now it's not the same as that, of course, because Falcon is now Cap, and now we have this new Falcon. All great characters. So I guess to circle back around to your question, I think this movie, I think, was satisfying in a lot of ways, but in some ways, um, the big moments that were for this show, were they told us what the story was in
Mhm.
the trailers. And that's where I've been kind of trying to think back. Like now, if we hadn't seen any of the trailers, would I have been able to go into this movie and think, wow, there was some huge things that happened in this, the
Mhm.
Red Hulk fight, and all that stuff, the stuff that they showed us in those trailers, it was all right there. So I get it. It worked for them. They've got $100 million opening weekend, 192 global. That's big for them. Of
Mhm.
course, 35th consecutive #1 opening for Marvel, for a Marvel movie. Uh, you know,
I was
that's
super happy to hear that and read that when I heard it because I mean there was a lot of backlash to this film about people not buying Sam Wilson, Anthony Mackie as Captain America, and I think that was
That was
garbage.
never.
I
Yeah.
pushed that out and I said,
Yeah.
no, this is a very good movie and I enjoyed it.
Yeah, that was I didn't find Harrison Ford, kind of like outshone him as
No, I
a
thought
star.
they met well.
Definitely,
No.
definitely a big star. But
Yeah.
this is definitely Anthony Mackie's movie. I felt like he owned it. I actually kind of felt like he was kind of like a James Bond in all of this, and I thought he was a very cool-headed, like great character to watch, and had some great lines, had some cheesy, corny stuff to say too. So some of the scripting was not amazing, but I felt like he carried that role. You have to give him something. I thought that the Wakandan wings and all of the extra superpowers, you really kind of have to give him a little extra something to put him up against a Hulk like that. A little and Ross is not an experienced Hulk, so because I was like, how are you going to beat the Hulk? We've seen this happen with a Hulkbuster.
You're basically getting your
very
original
difficult to
Green
do.
Hulk,
Yeah,
angry, rage, all of that
Yeah.
stuff, and sort of transport it into this with the Red Hulk. Because we get that, I think, with the Incredible Hulk, with Ed Norton's Hulk. that angry rage, where he gets stronger as he gets angrier. So
Yeah, it was wild that the vibranium wings were cutting right into his flesh. I like that was something that I was very surprised by, but I guess that's just the nature of the material. But it was interesting to see that he was actually able to puncture the Hulk's skin and wound him, which is not something. And I don't know if that's a trait. I don't know my Hulk color spectrum very well, so I maybe it's a red Hulk thing. But but it was cool because you kind of have to have some of those equalizers in a fight, otherwise he's just throwing them around, right?
Yeah, and the introduction of adamantium illustrates that too. That's a tease, right? So
Yeah.
yes, look, vibranium can puncture the Hulk skin. Thus
Oh.
so can
Talking
adamantium.
Wolverine, yeah. This was
Exactly.
Wolverine claws. This was not me being rude. I don't know why I just did that.
He's
but...
flashing fists at you, Brent. He didn't like that.
Yeah,
No,
that's
exactly. That's it.
Yeah.
So there's they're setting that up, and that's not unheard of too, because whenever Wolverine has faced the Hulk in the past, yes,
Yeah.
he can puncture his skin, but that doesn't matter because the Hulk heals kind of like Wolverine heals,
Yeah.
in a way too, right? So but yeah, they're establishing little factoids going on in this too. Yeah.
I have a quick question for you, Brent, here, because we got a couple minutes before we wrap up. So Cap 4 has basically, would say essentially started the ball rolling now into this new phase. We know what we're getting in July with Fantastic Four and where that's potentially going to lead in towards Doctor Doom. Sandwiched in the middle of that is going to be Daredevil, which I cannot wait for. It starts very shortly in March. But right after that is, where is this fitting into all of this? The Thunderbolts. I'm sorry, I sent you guys the trailer when it came out Super Bowl weekend. I am big on the Red Guardian right now. I think David Arbor is absolutely brilliant in this character.
Like the new Drax.
Yeah, where is this? Where is this leading, or is this sort of a sandwich filler, so to speak?
I think that they have established that in this movie, and in that trailer for Thunderbolts, they are doubling down on the fact that the Avengers aren't here right now. There's no Avengers. So Sam has been tasked with putting together an Avengers. Okay, so let's see that move forward. But the Winter Soldier, who's aware that Sam has been tasked with this and is about to be facing a situation, David Arbor is calling them the Thunderbolts, and the rest of them are like, we're not calling ourselves the Thunderbolts. Is there going to be any connection to Thunderbolt Ross, in this, because he wanted the Avengers brought back together again? I don't know. There seems like some obvious connection could be made in some fashion there, but yeah, so this is kind of a world without the Avengers, and then the Sentry shows up. What do you do? And you have Valentina Allegra de la Fontaine. She's going to be. She's somehow, bought Avengers Tower and is looking to kind of fill the void left by the Avengers. And she has all these connected characters, and she's going to put them into play. Now, if you look at Dark Avengers, the stories in the books, Norman Osborn ran them out of Stark Tower in a very much a similar way. So are they going to be leaning into that a little bit? I don't know what they're going to do.
And do we know the villain? Jamie and I were talking about this during the trailer. What villain the Thunderbolts are dealing with? The one that basically people collapse and they become shadows?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
But it's kind of if you haven't read the New Avengers, or if you there's more to the Sentry than there's other characters and other things connected to the Sentry.
Okay.
If you know the Sentry story,
Yeah.
And so I'm not going to say anything.
Good.
Go
Okay.
read
Thank you.
more
Yeah.
comics, I
Yes.
think is what
No,
Brent
no,
is
it's-
saying.
Read more comics. There you go. There you go.
Look, that's like I don't think you could end a conversation on an MCU movie better than read more comics. Like, come on, guys, just read the books. You'll figure it out. Well, I got some homework to do. I think I know where you're going, but I want to. I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to go do some digging and reading, which
Yeah.
is great.
Yeah.
I love being able to go back and read
Brent's
that.
giving us homework for the next time.
For sure. Well, wow. So, look, I got to say, we started off with I don't know, this is such a great movie, but we have had plenty to talk about. It has definitely stimulated our minds, and it has, it has awoken the story, modes that we want to see happen when these kinds of movies come out. You know, the teaser at the end with the leader talking about you don't know what's coming kind of reminds me a little bit of the Thanos at the end of the beginning of the Infinity Crisis. So it really kind of feels like we're launching something new here. We've got kind of a clean slate. There's no Avengers. You've got like these ragtag startups trying to fill the voids, and
Street level heroes.
yeah, and I mean we're entering into that with some Daredevil.
Yeah.
So yeah, really like this is going to be like a real like scrap fest for 2025. Very exciting stuff. Very exciting stuff.
It's all Brent's fault.
Yeah, you did this. You did this. Well, look. I mean, we'll be reassembling here.
Yes, we will be.
very, very soon. With Daredevil coming out in weeks.
Yep.
And so we'll have to get back together and we'll chat about that and a couple of movies probably to keep our eyes open.
Oh,
for.
absolutely.
So, and a reading assignment. So
Yes.
all good. This is
Brent, this has been a
great.
blast.
Yeah.
Great, guys. I'm looking forward to all of it. Yeah,
Right on.
thanks.
Right on. Well, we will
Stay safe the next 24 hours with Mother Nature. You know, she's been really unkind to us here. So
sidewalks aren't plowed.
Nope.
Be careful going outside.
Yeah, it's icy. Yeah. Play safe if you're outside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right on. Take care, Brent.
Thanks, Brent.
Thanks, guys. See you soon.
See ya.